Let's talk about KPIs or key performance indicators. This is the output, I guess, of 20 years of running my own businesses, recording, measuring, tracking, and these are the main key performance indicators that I keep coming back to time and time again to measure the success both of my own businesses and also those of the business owners that I mentor. Firstly, before we kick this off, the purpose of a business is to in some way improve your life. So before you start tracking KPIs in your business, you need to go back to working out what it is you want your life to look like. Because ultimately, the numbers that we're creating, the numbers we're tracking with your key performance indicators should again be improving your life in some way. Design your life first and then build a business that's going to support that life. Probably the most important and the most beneficial time that I spend working on my business each month is the half hour every month when I go deep into my KPIs. It's really getting a pulse check, getting a health check of your business. So, in an age of increasing digitalization, the use of agentic AI, I would still recommend you go and find this information yourself. Do not automate this process. It's the act of finding these numbers that helps you to understand your business more intimately. Maybe this information is coming from your accounting software like Xero. Maybe it's coming from some sort of practice management software or client management software that you use. Wherever it's coming from, even maybe from your bank account, go to the source, find the information, don't have it automatically pulled into the spreadsheets. 4 big reasons that I think you should be tracking your KPIs, and then we'll go into the anatomy of the KPI spreadsheet and then look at the things you should be tracking. The first thing is it will allow you to track trends. You want to know what direction your business is heading in across a whole range of different numbers. Second benefit of tracking KPIs is it will tell you what to focus on. If there are certain things that are falling behind your target KPIs, you know that that's where your attention should be. Third big reason to be tracking these KPIs is to correlate the actions you're taking on a day-to-day basis in your business with the actual outcomes. You know that if you're working hard on something and then you see the needle move on that particular measure, your hard work is coming to good effect. And finally, tracking these KPIs can help to calm anxiety. Very often with the business owners that I mentor, they will come to me and say, hey, it's been a really bad month. Numbers are down. Is this the beginning of the end? Is the sky falling? We look back at the same month in the previous year and realize that actually this is probably pretty normal for this time of year. In fact, we're better off than we were a year ago and much better off than we were 2 years ago. It just helps to keep you a little bit more level-headed and not be so reactive in business. Right, let's jump into the KPIs themselves, what you should be tracking and how you should actually be tracking these. If you're watching this on a video, this is going to make a lot of sense. If you're just listening to the audio version of this, I will talk through as best I can. So you should be tracking your KPIs on a simple spreadsheet. Again, having a dashboard that can do this for you, automating the process, is not my preferred method because if you do that, it's not going to give you all of the data you want. It's not going to allow you to go searching for that data and it will limit your understanding. Let's start out with a bird's eye view. Your KPI spreadsheet is going to be a series of columns. And in column A, which is where we'll start, you have all of the KPIs that you'll be tracking. These are the numbers you actually want to be looking at in your business. And we separate these down into a few different categories. We have KPIs for marketing. We have KPIs for sales. We have KPIs that are talking about your customer base, KPIs for service utilization, for revenue, a financial summary, customer financials, time economics, and finally, life quality. And in each of these subcategories, we'll have a series of KPIs that we will be tracking, which we'll talk about in a moment. If we go back to the anatomy of this KPI chart, again, we spoke about column A being the actual KPI you're tracking. These are the numbers we're looking at. Column B will be a medium-term target. So this is maybe something perhaps 6 months out, not the long-term vision for the business, but the number you want to be getting to with some renewed focus on improving these metrics. Then in column C will be your long-term target. And again, this is the business that is going to deliver you to the lifestyle that you are looking to lead in 3+ years. From here in column D, we have a template. This is where we have a lot of the formulae that we would need to automatically calculate some of these figures. And from there, you can see columns E onwards are the months. So this is where you're actually tracking your KPIs. I like to have the most recent month the most visible. So I will always go backwards. So the most recent KPI would be December. Before that would be November. Before that would be October. And as those columns shift through, we will go back in time. I would have a new tab for each year's KPIs. So whenever you're looking at your KPI sheet, the most recent month is always the one that you can see. You don't have to scroll through those columns. All right, that's the basic setup. Let's talk now about the different KPIs that I recommend you track in your business. These will not apply to every business. Obviously, service-based businesses or product-based businesses will have slightly different KPIs. This is for a business that is relying on return customers. A lot of businesses in the health or fitness industry, for example, would fit this bill. So let's first talk about the marketing categories. These are the things that we're going to be tracking related to marketing. Firstly is your marketing spend. How much money are you spending on marketing to try and acquire new customers each month? The second thing we would be looking at is the number of leads from the different sources. So in the example on the spreadsheet that I'm using, we're looking at the number of leads from 5 different sources. You're probably going to have more than 5 lead sources in your business, so you would add some extra rows in here. Then we have the total number of leads, which of course is each of those different lead sources added together. For example, your lead sources may be social media, they may be your website, they may be referrals, for example. And then finally, the lead acquisition cost. And you can calculate that lead acquisition cost by taking your marketing spend, how much you spent to try and get more customers coming in, and divide that by the total number of new leads. This will tell you how much you're spending to acquire each customer, or each lead rather. Now we move on to sales, which is our next category, and 2 KPIs that we're going to be looking at in sales. The first is the number of new paying customers. So how many new people have you brought on board into your business who are now active paying customers? And the second number under the sales heading is the conversion rate of leads to paying customers. So this is how many of your leads, the people who've inquired, have turned into paying customers. What is your conversion rate? And that will be expressed as a percentage. Our next major heading here in your KPI document will be your customer base. And there are a range of KPIs that we'll be looking at here, starting at total active customers. How many people are currently in your business and paying you money on a recurring basis? Next, we look at returning customers. This is how many people have rejoined your business after a period of not being active paying customers. We then move to customer growth. How much has your business grown by? If you had 100 customers last month and you have 110 customers this month, that would be a growth of 10. Then on to customer departures. How many people have left your business? We then move to customer suspensions. How many people are technically still on your books? They are still customers, but they're not currently paying. Maybe they're on holiday or they've put your service on hold. Then down to suspension rate. This is the number of your total customer base who are currently on suspension. So if you have 100 active customers, but only 90 of those are currently paying you because 10 are suspended, then your suspension rate would be 10%. This is the total number of members on hold at any point in time divided by your total active customers. We then move to retention rate of existing customers. So this is looking at what percentage of last month's paying customers are still paying customers this month. We then move to churn rate. Churn rate is quite simply the number of last month's paying customers who have departed this month. So your retention rate, let's say you had 100 people last month. Of those 100 people, 95 are still present. Your retention rate would be 95%, which means your churn rate would then be 5%. So your retention rate and your churn rate added together will add up to 100%. We then have your average customer lifespan. Now, this can be a really tricky one to track accurately because you don't know how long each customer that you have currently is going to stay with you. But we can calculate this by taking 1 divided by your churn rate, where your churn rate is expressed as a fraction, not as a percentage. What this will do is tell you on average how many months your clients are staying with you, which is very useful when we're looking to work out how much our average lifetime value per customer is. We then move down to client reactivation rate. This is the percentage of past clients who are returning in a given month. So if you have 100 active customers and over the lifetime of your business, you've had 200 people leave. So 100 active customers, 200 people have been active clients but have left over the lifetime of your business, and you have 20 of those return, that means that your client reactivation rate is 10%. 10% of all of those active clients have rejoined your business. Now, 10% is a very high rate for this, but for the ease of maths, you can see how we're calculating it. We then move to Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is a measure of people's answer to the question of how likely would you be to recommend our service to a friend or a loved one. There's an equation that you can use for this to calculate your Net Promoter Score. It's probably the best measure of loyalty that you can have in your business, along with the retention rate that we've already spoken about. And then the Customer Effort Score. So we're looking at the average CES, CES being the Customer Effort Score. This is how hard your customers have to work to utilize your service. You want to make that service or product as easy as possible for people. So measuring both your Net Promoter Score, NPS, and your Customer Effort Score, your CES, these two numbers are going to help you to calculate your loyalty, to be able to help you calculate how likely it is that people are going to remain customers in the long run. All right, so we move from the customer base heading now down to service utilization. So we start off with the number of customers who are utilizing service number 1. So you'll have a certain number of services in your business. We would call this your service menu, the different menu items that people can choose from. Each of those menu items, of course, has a cost. So we're looking at the number of customers who utilize service number 1, whatever that particular service may be, and then the cost of service 1. We then move down to the number of customers utilizing service number 2 and the cost of service number 2. And again, if we were to take a health-based business, maybe service number 1 could be people paying a full access membership to some sort of health service. Maybe service number 2 could be people participating in small group classes for that particular health-based business, etc. So we can look at those different service types, how many people are using each, and then the cost of each of those service types. This allows us now to move down to revenue, which is our next major heading here. We look at revenue from each of those service types, which is quite simply going to be the number of people who are using that service multiplied by the cost of that service. We then also look at the percentage of revenue from each of those services. So this is where we can break down, and for service number 1, for example, whatever that may happen to be, we look at what fraction of the total revenue from your business is coming from that. Because ultimately, maybe you want to allocate most of your revenue to 1 or 2 particular services, or you want to diversify a little bit more and have that spread across a whole bunch of different services, again, to diversify your service offering. Then we can have revenue from other sources. Maybe you operate a service-based business, but you also bring in revenue from products or retail. These would be included here as well under the revenue subheading. Then we move down to the financial summary. So we're looking at total revenue, which is the revenue from each of those service types, as well as any products or retail sales. Then total expenditure. Total expenditure would be every single dollar you've spent on your business. In the basic spreadsheet that we use to track your KPIs, we're not breaking this down into each source or each type of expenditure. This is something that you would see in accounting software. You could break this down if you want it in your KPIs, but I like to keep this nice and clean. You can use a profit and loss statement in software like Xero, for example, if you want a bigger breakdown of this. So this will just be total expenditure. We then move to owner benefit. Owner benefit is going to be maybe salary, if that's how your business operates, or drawings, if that's how your business operates. Salary is a set amount that you will be drawing from the business on each pay cycle, be that weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. Drawings would be you simply taking money out of the business as you see fit, which could be an amount that changes each month, as opposed to the salary, which is usually going to stay the same. We then look at expenditure excluding owner benefits. So this is how much money is the business spending minus how much you're drawing from the business, either as salary or drawings. This is handy if you are a sole trader, if you operate with a company as a legal structure, but you're then taking money from that. Because again, if you're the sole owner of this business, you're not overly concerned whether the business is making lots of money or whether you are making lots of money. Let's say the business earns $10,000 and you earn $0, or the business earns $0 and you earn $10,000. Effectively, these are both the same as far as you're concerned personally, because you are the the sole owner of this business. Then we move down to business profit. This is quite simply how much the business is earning minus how much the business is spending. At the end of the day, what are you taking home? And finally, under the financial summary heading, we have the business profit plus owner benefit. This is where you take the profit of the business, how much the business is earning, plus how much you've taken from the business, which, as far as I'm concerned, for most small businesses is the most important number to be looking at. Again, it doesn't matter if you are earning a lot of money or whether the business is earning a lot of money. What you want to do is look at that combined value in terms of the impact that the business is able to have financially on your life. We now dig in a little bit into some of the financials and look at customer financials. So under this subheading, we start with customer acquisition cost. We've already had a look at our marketing spend at the top of this spreadsheet. So we simply take your marketing spend and divide that by the number of new paying customers. This tells us how much it will cost to acquire each new customer. And as we look in a moment at your customer lifetime value, as long as your customer lifetime value is more than the cost to acquire a customer, you know your business is heading in the right direction. We can then look at average revenue per customer, which is the total revenue divided by the total active customers in your business. We can look at average expenditure per customer, so how much you're spending for each of those customers, total expenditure divided by the total active customers. We can then move to average profit per customer, which is your average revenue per customer minus your average expenditure per customer, which allows you to work out how much profit is actually coming into your business for every one of the customers that you have. We can then look at the profit margin. The profit margin is basically the average profit per customer divided by the average revenue per customer multiplied by 100, which will give you a percentage, which is your profit margin. And finally, your customer lifetime value. And we look at this in terms of profit. We're not looking at this in terms of revenue. We want to know that for every customer you bring into your business, how much is that customer worth over the lifetime of their stay with your business? And we basically calculate this by taking the average customer lifespan in months, which we've been able to calculate from our churn rate, and we multiply that by the average profit per customer. This gives us the average lifetime value of each of your customers. Now, we now move into time economics. A lot of what we've spoken about so far are metrics around the business numbers, metrics around the business financials. Time economics, though, I think is really important. Obviously, we are used to trading in dollars, but we need to think about trading in time. Money and dollars are not the only resource that we have at our disposal that we can be working with. We also need to be thinking about time. We need to be optimizing our business to give us more time. So you should be tracking your total hours worked. How many total hours have you worked over the space of a month? I track this broken down into a range of different work types that I do. But this can just be your total number of total hours worked, both hours that are billable. You work for an hour, you get paid $200, but also hours that are non-billable. This could be travel time. This could be generating or creating reports. This could be doing admin tasks. This could be marketing tasks. We want to look at the total number of hours that you've worked. Then we can calculate our hourly rate, which is basically your business profit plus the owner benefit divided by the total number of hours worked. This tells you the return you are getting on your time. For every hour of your time, how much money are you generating in the business? You can see this is a great number to try and optimize the efficiency of that business. And finally, the last KPI category that we look at, this is your life quality. And again, we go full circle here. At the start, I said your business must exist to improve your life in some way. So there's a simple 5-question satisfaction with life scale that a lot of psychologists will use. And it's a battery of 5 different questions or 5 different statements. And on each, you should rate on a scale of 1 to 7 how much this applies to you. The 5 statements are: in most ways, my life is close to ideal. The conditions of my life are excellent. I'm satisfied with my life. So far, I have gotten the important things I want in life. And finally, if I could live my life over, I would change almost nothing. Each of those is scored on a scale of 1 to 7. Those numbers are then added together to give a satisfaction with life total, which is going to be anywhere between 0 and 35. Again, if your business is doing amazing financially, but your satisfaction with life scale score is low, you have to question your business, you have to question your structure, and you have to question whether the business is in fact improving your life in some way. All right, so those are the main KPIs that I'd be looking at. Not all will apply to you and your business, but this will give you a really comprehensive look at the business, and it will give you a lot of numbers, which will help us then further down the line dig into your business, work out where your attention needs to be, what is operating well, and maybe what is going to need some more of your attention. Let's have a look at what this would actually look like in a working business. So you can see, if you're following this on the video, I have created some medium and long-term targets. So you'll recall that column B were the medium-term targets for your business. Column C are those long-term targets for your business. This is effectively your goal-setting process as a business owner. Going through and putting in some of these numbers, having the formulae in there, and seeing what's going to happen to your bottom line if you have some different numbers of clients, different numbers of marketing spend, different numbers of sales, different numbers of conversions, changing numbers in your customer base, different service type numbers, etc. All of these are going to allow you to track and plot where you want your business to go. Once you've done that, and once you've got some medium-term targets, maybe the next 6 months, and some long-term targets, 3+ years, so the long-term grown-up adult future of your business, then we can actually start to use this spreadsheet on a weekly basis. Again, if you're watching this on the video, you'll see what I've done is I've color-coded each of the KPIs we'll be tracking. So the demo example that I'm looking at here, I have put in some demo numbers for December. So these are just numbers for a fictional business. We have, again, created our medium and long-term targets, and we've now filled in some demo numbers for December. So we can see for this fictional business, the numbers that this business was hitting. What we'll then do is look at those demo numbers and put together a traffic light system. If, for example, marketing spend, you've spent $850 on marketing and your medium-term target is $800, you're pretty close to where you want your marketing spend to be. So I would then highlight that marketing spend KPI in green. Green basically means that you have reached your target or you're very close to reaching it, which means that when you're looking at how you're spending your time within the business, you shouldn't be spending a lot of time on these items, these KPIs that are highlighted in green, because you've already hit your targets on those. If we look at the other end of the scale, maybe we're looking at the number of new paying customers in your business. And let's say the business in a particular month, in our trial month of December here, has picked up 7 new paying customers. However, a medium-term target is 12. So we're only at about 50% of where we want to be for this. So I'm going to highlight that KPI in red. So again, column A with all of those different KPIs, eventually we'll have all of these KPIs highlighted a certain color. We'll look at something more middle range. Maybe we'll look at number of new leads, and our target is 30. And in December, we had 20. Okay, so we're on the way. We're not there yet, but we're not completely off. That item, that KPI would be highlighted in orange. Orange is going to allow us to say, right, it's highlighted in orange. It's going to need some attention, but maybe not as much attention as some of those red items. Then very simply, we can look at this KPI spreadsheet, look at where we need to be focusing our attention to be able to move our actual KPI numbers through to those target KPIs. If you can follow this process, if you can follow these numbers, create a spreadsheet that allows you to keep your finger on the pulse of your business, you will find that you are much more clued into what your business is doing and the impact and effect that the work you're doing on the business is having on your overall business health and also on the overall health of your life in general. This is one of the most important things you can be doing for your business. Please track these KPIs. This is a very comprehensive list. Use as many of these as you think are appropriate for your business. You will gain this intimate understanding of where your business is, where it's going, and what you need to do to get it there.